Ever think about how our digital lives, all the scrolling and streaming and AI stuff, affect the planet? I mean, it doesn't seem like there'd be much of a connection, right?
Well, there's more to it than meets the eye, that's for sure.
Yeah, for this deep dive, we're really going in depth on the environmental impact of all things digital. We've got some eye-opening research that I think will really make you think twice about your next Google search or TikTok binge.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think people will be surprised by some of this.
For sure. Okay, so to kick things off, just consider this for a second. Every single time you ask an AI a question, like ChatGPT or whatever, it uses almost half a liter of water.
Half a liter? Wow, that's like a whole bottle of water.
Crazy, right? It really makes you think about all those unseen costs, right? Like all those clicks and taps we make every day, they actually add up.
They definitely do. And, it's easy to think of those interactions as kind of weightless, but there's a real physical impact happening behind the scenes. When you multiply that half liter by billions of daily interactions, it becomes a significant resource drain.
Absolutely. So help us understand this a little better. Why does AI need so much water?
It all comes down to processing power. AI requires huge amounts of computing power, which in turn generates a ton of heat. And a lot of these data centers, where all this processing happens, rely on water cooling systems to keep everything running smoothly.
So it's not the AI itself that's using the water directly, it's more about the infrastructure needed to support it.
Precisely. Understanding this connection between processing power and water consumption really gives us a better grasp of our overall digital footprint. It's something that both creators and tech companies are becoming increasingly aware of. This idea of digital stewardship is becoming super important, making a conscious effort to build and maintain our digital world in a responsible way.
Right, and it's easy to forget that this digital world isn't just some abstract thing floating out there. Like we talk about the cloud all the time, but
But the cloud is actually very much grounded in the physical world. It's a vast network of data centers, these giant facilities filled with servers and all kinds of equipment, and those facilities require a massive amount of energy to operate.
and that's where the environmental impact really starts to hit home, right?
Definitely. It's encouraging to see that major players like Google and Microsoft are setting these really ambitious sustainability targets.
Yeah, they're aiming for carbon neutrality by 2030, right? Some are even talking about becoming water positive.
Exactly. But what's even more promising is that it's not just the big tech giants taking this seriously.
Yeah, what are some of the smaller companies doing?
Well, our sources point out that there are tons of smaller companies and startups finding innovative ways to reduce their impact too. Like they're using renewable energy sources to power their operations, optimizing their server infrastructure to be more efficient, and even finding ways to reuse the heat generated by the data centers for things like heating buildings.
It's cool to see that it's happening at all these different levels, not just at the top.
Yeah, exactly. It really highlights how sustainability in the digital realm is a multifaceted effort.
So we've talked about the physical infrastructure, but our research also highlighted this concept of digital minimalism as a way to reduce our environmental impact. What exactly does that mean?
Digital minimalism, in this context, is all about being mindful and intentional about how we design and interact with digital products and experiences. So that means, for example, writing more streamlined code that requires less processing power to run, creating lightweight interfaces that minimize data transfer, and offering features like dark mode, which can actually reduce screen energy consumption on certain devices. It's all about making conscious choices to reduce the overall resource use.
So even something as simple as choosing dark mode can make a difference.
It can, especially when you consider how many people are using devices with those kinds of features. Every little bit counts.
It makes you realize that even the way something looks on our screen can have a real-world impact. And this kind of leads into another point our sources highlighted, which is the role of storytelling in promoting a more sustainable digital future.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Storytelling has this incredible power to make abstract ideas more concrete and relatable.
So how do you think we can use storytelling to get people to care about digital sustainability?
Well, by sharing stories about the real-world benefits of things like eco-friendly web hosting or highlighting the energy implications of cryptocurrency, we can make these concepts less technical and more tangible. And when people understand the impact of their choices, they're more likely to make changes in their own lives.
That makes sense. It's about connecting the dots between the digital and the physical.
Exactly.
This whole conversation reminds me of something we saw in the earthmonth.pdf, that image of swans mirrored in the water.
Oh yeah, that's a beautiful image.
It is, and I think it works as a powerful metaphor for the balance and reflection we need to cultivate in our digital lives. Our actions in the digital world have real world consequences, and we need to be mindful of that. And for our listeners out there, especially if you're creative types, think about how this concept of mirroring applies to your own work. Whether you're a fashion illustrator or a web designer or a musician, everything you create has a footprint.
It does. It all comes back to that idea of digital stewardship we talked about earlier.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, but let's get practical for a moment. What are some concrete steps our listeners can take to reduce their digital footprint?
Well, if you have your own website, you can look into ways to optimize it for energy efficiency. You can also be more mindful about how you formulate those AI prompts to make them more efficient. Or you could explore digital tools and services that prioritize sustainability. Even switching to a search engine that uses renewable energy can make a difference.
It sounds like there are a lot of options. It doesn't have to be some huge lifestyle overhaul, right?
Definitely not. Even just choosing one small change can start to make a difference.
That's good to hear. So, to wrap things up, what's one key takeaway you hope our listeners will walk away with today?
I think the biggest takeaway is that true digital innovation isn't just about creating cool new technologies. It's about creating technologies that work in harmony with our planet, not at its expense.
That's a great way to put it. We hope this deep dive has encouraged you to think a little differently about your own relationship with technology and the environment. And who knows, maybe it's even sparked some ideas for how you can use your own creativity to contribute to a more sustainable digital future. Thanks for joining us.